Welcome back. This is Common Sense RI. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and we've been having a conversation with Michael Riley, who is a financial advisor to two financial firms, and you've done an awful lot of work studying our pension systems, both state and municipal, and also 38 studios.
Yes.
And you've looked at it from kind of what the deal was with moral obligation bonds. I want to kind of talk about 38 studio bonds in relationship to the new Garvey bonds that are going out. Garvey, for you folks that are listening, are the bonds that we say we're going to be getting money from the federal government. So we're going to borrow money based upon the fact that we're getting that money. And by getting it early, we not only won't have that money in the future, but we'll pay an interest rate on it. But let's talk about the 38 Studios offering, bond offering. I actually read it, and I thought that the conditions inside were hostile to taxpayers. Very high interest rate, higher than, I mean, if you're guaranteeing people they're going to be paid, it should have been a very low interest rate. We paid 7 5/8, I think.
Yeah.
An enormously high interest rate. And then the other thing that was galling was that even if we wanted to say, okay, we don't want to pay any more interest, we were prevented from paying it off earlier or restructuring it.
So you're looking at it now and saying what a mistake this was. I found out about it because someone called me and said, I don't know why it's like this, but you can buy into this bond, and here's what you can get, and I don't understand why you can get this and why the rate is so different from going rates in the rest of the market. Moody's rated AA. If you compared it to every AA bond in that time area, it was yielding 300 basis points more.
300 basis points is 3%.
3 full percent.
3% more.
Just way out of whack.
The folks who have savings accounts and are getting 0.5% will understand what that means.
You were getting a guaranteed 7.5, and beyond being guaranteed, the state then went in and said, okay, we'll give you enough money so that you can pay for your own insurance. And so they insured their bonds on top of all of this. Now, we decided not to invoke the insurance, which I have a real problem with.
Yep, me too.
Okay, but basically a bondholder it was almost like a treasury. I'm guaranteed 7.5% when the treasuries were 3.
Yeah. Enormously high interest rate for a bond that was guaranteed, and we've seen in the paper just recently that that's what the people who were loaning the state the money thought. They said, we didn't even look at the company's spreadsheets because we knew we were going to get paid back, guaranteed.
And that would be the instinct of an investor like me. But even beyond that, you know the common sense. If something is so good and it just can't be true. That was my attitude. I was afraid of it because I said, this can't possibly, there's got to be some way that I'm going to lose in the end.
Yeah, because it was just too rich.
It was wrong. How could Moody's rate it AA? How could it, at the same time they rate it AA, have it be a 7.7% yield? It just did not make any sense. So for me, now looking back at this, there had to be some sort of tomfoolery between the rating agency and the state, and I think that should be investigated. And we have to look at 38 Studios for all of the things that it did wrong. You mentioned one thing earlier about paying off early.
All right, and so there's the other thing. Inside the conditions, it says they cannot be prepaid. So if I remember when this was happening in the General Assembly, I said, well, why don't we just find the money and pay it off? At least stop the interest rate. Stop that interest rate.
Yeah.
You cannot. By the conditions that are put in the offering, you cannot do it. You can't alter it because sometimes you can go and you can kind of like put out a second mortgage on it. You take the same bonds, you make a different deal.
Right. You
can't do it.
You can refinance.
Cannot
is
do
what
it.
You're saying.
Refinance it.
Well, this was a private placement. This was sent specifically to a group of institutions and individual investors who were told what the investment was, but who were also assured they couldn't lose money. They were literally assured they couldn't lose money. I don't know who said that to them, or who said that to Moody's, or who said it to anybody. It should never be said. I mean,
never.
as an investment advisor, you could never say that.
Right.
But basically it was. And then we had our State House officials go and visit Moody's and so on and so forth, and give their personal guarantee. I believe Piva Weed said it, a personal guarantee that we'll pay these off. That's when it became my moral obligation, and that disgusts me.
Well, more than your moral obligation, your obligation.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So right on the front of that document.
Oh, yes, it did.
The citizens of Rhode Island do not have to pay this.
It does say it. It's in a box.
Right,
It's actually bolded.
Yeah, but that's
so
not
that
what
you can see
Piva
it.
Weed said.
No, it isn't. And it's probably all of that stuff which has prevented us from really having an investigation. I've called every year for an independent investigation, and it keeps getting shut down. But for me now, I mean, I'm going to continue to do it.
Yeah.
The SEC has come in. Funny, the SEC can investigate, and they can find wrongdoing.
They actually are charging Wells Fargo and the Rhode Island EDC with fraud.
That's the
I think-
Securities and Exchange Commission.
Right. So that's the SEC. They govern the issuance of bonds. That's why I think Providence is violating the SEC, because they're misleading their investors.
They're not giving the real numbers.
Right.
So why this is really troubling to me, I mean, it's troubling to me because we should never have had the 38 studios. We should not be continuing to pay it. And we should have a real investigation by somebody who is independent and can get to the bottom of it.
Which is exactly what would happen if the insurance company stepped in.
But-
They'd hire somebody other than a Rhode Island General Assembly member or the Attorney General of Rhode Island. They would hire somebody outside and have a real investigation.
But they won't do that unless we say we're not paying anymore.
Right.
So
There's no
that's
reason.
why we keep paying.
Right.
That's why we keep paying.
That's the big cover-up, and it's
But-
been going on since Mattiello stepped into that chair.
Right, but yes. But now we have $230 million worth of new bonding going out, which is the Garvey bonds for the roadworks program. How do we make certain that those very hostile to taxpayer provisions are not in these bond documents?
I don't know. I don't know what we can do. I do wish we had already gone through the investigation and seen exactly what was wrong with how we handled 38 studios, and we would know exactly what to look for. You mentioned one, the refinancing capability, but you know, I don't know what we can do. I honestly don't.
Yeah, we just have to
One idea.
make them give us the documents before they make the deal.
Well, some people have said don't issue moral obligation bonds, and if
Well,
they're going
and the
to.
Garvey is not going to be moral obligation, but still you
But
can
the-
write conditions into these bond documents that are not good for taxpayers, and I want to check it out, quite frankly. I don't trust them anymore.
Well, yes, that's right. And again, I don't know the specifics of a Garvey bond, but another thing you can do is you can have a dollar amount. If we're going to raise in a bond offering a certain dollar amount, I want a citizen vote. I don't want to just go through the assembly and have it passed on. So if we have
See,
a,
that's lack of trust.
yeah,
It is lack of trust. And that's where we're stuck in Rhode Island politics today. We'll see you next week.